What up? So in this video I'm just going to go over some basic device configurations. This will include setting up a host name, some passwords, and maybe configuring the device for remote management, and just a few other basic things you can do to kind of set up a switch. So if you think you already have a pretty good grasp on basic device configurations, then I would just skip this video. I know I won't want to watch any videos that have to do with setting device passwords because it's pretty basic. If you already know it, just skip. So these basic configurations are usually put on just about all the devices under your control, and they won't vary too much from device to device. So you can kind of think of this as setting a baseline. Usually all the switches that you'll deploy will have some form of these commands already pre-loaded before you actually put it in your rack. So let's just jump in and take a look at some of them. So I'm just gonna start on, let's say, switch 0. This was our first device, I think, that we ever added to this network. Now if we go in, now hopefully you're familiar with the command show run. So you gotta go into enable mode, and you can do show run, and this pulls up all of this whole thing. This is the running configuration of the switch, how it's configured to do its shit at the moment. So you can see we've got our host name of just switch, it's default, a little bit of spanning tree, all of the interface configurations. You can see what we've already done, the trunk to router 0 and our host ports. This is the one for the 4.4.4 host, which we put in VLAN 20, and a couple other commands there. You can also see these are the management lines. We got our console, which is what we're in right now actually, and then our remote management VTY lines. So first we're going to set a host name here, and we have to go into configure terminal, global mode, and the command for this, probably the easiest one that you'll ever do, host name and whatever we want. So we'll rename this to awesome switch. This is going to be one of those nights where I can't spell again, I can already tell. So we hit enter, we can see that our host name was switched to awesome switch. This is you need to set a host name on all your devices. It won't really affect how it runs, but you'll need it later if you want to configure SSH, and it's also a very good idea if you're remotely managing these devices, because when you log into one remotely you can just see, like, oh yeah, I am in the switch that I wanted to be in. Cool, thumbs up. So if we do a show run again, we'll see, yeah, it was changed to awesome switch. Sweet. So next thing is we want to set an enable password. So if you can see right here, when we log into the switch and we do an enable, we just automatically go into the elevated area of commands. We don't want that to happen to people that we don't want to be in there. So what we'll do is we'll set an enable. We can either set a password or a secret password. This password, we'll just go ahead and do that. Enable password Cisco. If we do that and we do a show run, then we'll see it pop up here, enable password Cisco. So it says it directly there. Now if you've got somebody looking over your shoulder and watching you do a show run on the switch, then they'll be able to physically see with their eyeballs your enable password. So I'm just going to take that out real quick and see what happens when we do an enable secret. And we'll do the same thing, Cisco. Shit, I did the no. I'll take that out of there. Enable secret Cisco. Do a show run, and we'll see that we have an enable secret 5 and a whole bunch of gibberish bullshit. So the difference between enable password and an enable secret is password's plain text, you can clearly see it in the running config, and secret is an encrypted or hash of a password that if somebody's looking over your shoulder, you won't be able to fucking decipher that with your own eyes. So that's how we set that password, and when we exit out of the switch and want to come back into enable mode, we have to enter in our password, which is Cisco, and now we're in. So next up, we're going to configure a username and a password for the switch, kind of like an account on the switch. So we'll do that using the username, and we'll enter our username. We'll go with Bob, and here we'll set a password, a privilege level, or a secret password, just like before. So it's good to go ahead and go with the secret, and we'll give him the password. We'll keep it Cisco. Now this output here, you see, 0 specifies an unencrypted secret will follow, 5 specifies a hidden secret will follow. This is if you're like copying and pasting a hash of a password. So we could go ahead and dump, like, we could put 5 space and dump this gibberish next to that, and the switch would actually take that command, and we could log in using Cisco. But if you just type it out, it'll encrypt it for you. So now we've set up that account. Let's set up another one and add the privilege in there. We'll say Dave and privilege 15. So there's different privilege levels for switch commands. There's 0 through 15. The lower the privilege is, the less you can do when logged into a switch. So if we create an account here for Dave with a privilege level of 15, he can log in and do anything on the switch. And that also means that if he remotely logs in, then he's automatically in privilege level 15, which is enable mode. So we won't have to, if we logged in with this account, we wouldn't have to put in enable and then configure terminal. We would automatically be logged in as well in the enable mode. Just throw his password in here, also Cisco. So now we've got these 2 accounts, and we can do a show run and see that both of our accounts show up here with our encrypted password. Now I'm just going to quick do another one. Username, yes. Password, hey. So we can see that show up under our other accounts. Now if we want to encrypt this and not like take that command out or anything, what we can do is it's a command service password encryption. If we enable this globally, it'll automatically encrypt any plain text password that it sees in the running configuration. So if we go back in there, we can see we've got username yes, privilege 1, password 7. This 7 is the method that is used to encrypt the password. 7's actually very weak. It's Cisco proprietary. The only thing 7 level password encryption is used for is just so that someone can't directly see it. You can type this hash into Google anywhere and it'll spit you back out the right password in no time at all. These 5s, I think they use MD5 as the hash. These cannot be reversed yet. So 5 it's always good to go with level 5. Okay, banners. This is a logon banner for when you bring up the console or you log into the switch, it'll display this banner up front. And usually people will tell you, hey, don't put welcome on it, you know, because that just invites people to fuck your shit up. Yeah, well, it's kind of true, but really for this, we'll put anything we want here. So the command for this is banner MOTD for message of the day. And here we get line C, banner text C, where C is a delimiting character. So the next thing you need to enter in is a delimiting character, which will tell it when you're done typing. So we're going to use the parenthesis here. So here we get to type in our message like, hey, yo, what's up? And we can do spaces and anything we want. Hi, yo, banner. And then when we're done, we just put in our character that we determined in the command, and it knows we're done. If we do a show run here, we'll see that we have a message of the day somewhere. Yeah, right here. I'm blind. So here's what we typed in. That's our banner. And to test that, we'll just exit out of the switch entirely. Hey, yeah, right here. Press return to get started. Hey, yo, what's up? Hi, yo, banner. So we see it as soon as we log in. Now, the next command we're going to do here is a clock set. It's pretty much exactly how I say it. Clock, time zone, enter the word of the time zone. We'll just go with, like, shit, I don't know, GMT something. Alright, hours offset from UTC. We'll say it's 23 minutes 50. Why not? Enter. Do show run. We'll see our clock time zone set up here. This is what will show up on our timestamps if we're like logging through a syslog server. Now there's also a thing called NTP that we can use to let it automatically pull time from a server just to make sure that it's always up to date. Sometimes you can't always rely on the switch's internal time. And I don't know if you guys, if I ever said anything about this command, a do write. This is the same thing as copy run start. Now do copy run start. So what this does is it just copies the running configuration, like what we see here when we do a show run, to the startup configuration. If we were to do all these commands and never copy it to the startup config, then if we reloaded the switch or unplugged it or anything, then all these commands would be cleared. Even though they're running on the switch, the startup config would still be a blank default if you never wrote over it. Okay, next command here. Oh, here's a really neat one that I really like to do. It's called no IP name server. So with this command, if we type in gibberish, it'll always say invalid. Now I don't know if you remember before. I'll just show you here on the router. Oops. If we type in gibberish here, yeah, it'll say translating your gibberish to domain server broadcast. And you'll have to either wait till that time's out or do the Control-Shift-6 command to get out of it. Now on an actual real-world telnet or SSH connection, you cannot use the Control-Shift-6 to make it break that process. So it's a good idea if you're not wanting to use DNS on the device itself, it's a good idea to just go ahead and turn that off so you don't get those annoying shit fucks that always pop up. As I say that, it does it anyway. Wow. Probably because I told you the wrong command. It's no IP domain lookup. Yeah, there we go. Not no IP name server, no IP domain lookup. I'm a fucking idiot. Okay, moving on from that, here's some shit that you really probably do want to know. This is the console port setup. So if we go line console 0, this is actually the port that this is simulating us plugged into right now. This is the port you plug your laptop in to directly manage the switch. And you can see we've got a lot of commands here that we can do. Now what we're concerned with is a password on this console line. So if we just do password Cisco here and log in, if you just put the password on there, it actually won't do anything until you put this login command, because it tells the switch to check for a password upon login. And we'll just test that by backing completely out of the switch again. Now you see, press return to get started, and we've got user access verification. Cisco. Enabled Cisco. Yeah. Now another way, which will make use of these accounts that we have configured before. Instead of doing just a password and login, requiring one single password upon login, we can do login local. Now this will check for a configured user account. So now when we go in, it'll ask us for a username. So we configured Bob with the password of Cisco, and that's how we log into the switch now. Pretty much under the console port. There's another command, it's called logging synchronous. What this does is when we get our syslog messages, kind of like these up here. If a port goes down or something, or a service comes up or is flapping, while we're in the middle of typing commands, it's actually going to split our typing up, and it's going to confuse the fuck out of you. In my past videos, it's confused me while I was typing because I didn't have this turned on. If you have this on, it will keep your whatever you're typing in a nice pretty little line by like kind of like copying it down below all of the messages that pop up. That's a nice thing to have turned on. Let me just look through here, see if I'm missing anything important. Privilege level, that does the same thing as in the user accounts, but it's for the whole interface. Transport, well, I'll go into that on the VTY lines. Just kidding. Okay. I think the last one is exec timeout here. This tells the port how long to wait for activity before logging someone out. So this is lets you type in the timeout in minutes. So if we wanted 60 minutes right here, exec timeout 60, this means that this console port will wait 1 hour. And if there's been no activity for 1 hour on the port, then it'll go ahead and log whoever was in out. So that's nice in case you leave a laptop somewhere on a desk and you forget to log out of your switch. The next person that walks by can't just hop into your switch. Okay, the next one, line VTY lines. If you type in line VTY 0, and then the next one is the last line. You can configure however many of these lines you want, but basically what this means is you can have 15 virtual connections to the switch at any one time. And you can configure passwords for each line individually if you wanted to, or all of them. I always do all. So this is the same as the console ports. We can either do a password and set that up, or we can do login local, which is what I always like to do. And the main difference between this and the console port is the transport methods. So with this command, transport, you can do input and output. Input, and here we've got SSH, telnet, none, or all. All will allow SSH and telnet. We're just going to put in all, but basically if we have SSH set up on the switch and we want, like somebody wants to log into our switch via telnet, which if you know anything about SSH versus telnet, telnet's unsecure when compared with SSH. So if we have SSH set up and, well really we'd put it on this port for it to work anyway, but we didn't want anybody to use telnet, then we would just specify right here transport input SSH. And that would block any telnet connection trying to come into the switch. Now for the output, this is what can be used to connect to another switch from this switch. So if on here we decided to type in the command telnet blah 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 somewhere, it'd look at this from the VTY line and it'll say like, hey, you can't do that because the switch isn't allowed to use telnet to get out of this switch. So that's what output is. Output is whatever is coming from this switch as a destination. Input is any remote connections trying to come in. And you can dictate what protocol they use. Okay, pretty much the last basic command I'm going to go over. This is pretty much off the top of my head. I wrote them down on a sticky note, so I probably am leaving something out, but let's do interface descriptions. You probably know about these already, but if you type in the command description under an interface, we'll put like, I don't know, coolest port ever. And we back out and we do a show run. Then we'll see under that port that we were on has description, coolest port ever. Now, this is nice when you remote into a switch and do a show run, and if every port's got a description, like, oh, this is our link to router 0, this is our link to router 1, blah blah blah. Like if we did that on our actual network here, put a description on all these ports where they're going, then if we just typed in a random management IP address and like landed here and we're like, oh shit, where the fuck am I? And we looked, we saw a description saying that this went here, this went here, this is here, this is here, then that should just make our lives so much fucking easier. Okay, some other commands that are useful that I'm not really going to go too much into. No CDP run. This globally turns off CDP for the entire device. Not sure. I don't think I've hit on CDP yet, but that's a Cisco Discovery protocol. It'll tell the switch information about directly connected neighbor devices. So if we turn it off globally, then it won't it won't try to look at neighbors. No CDP packets will flow through the network. And this can be a problem. You can do this per port also. If we went into fast Ethernet 01 and we put no CDP enable on that, then it would just turn CDP off for that port. That's usually how I do it, is port by port, not on the whole switch, because at least in packet tracer, if you're running IP phones have to have CDP enabled. In the real world, there's workarounds to this. It can use different protocols besides CDP to work, but in packet tracer you have to have it. Some other ones, IP default gateway. This will tell the switch. Yeah, this is pretty much just for switches. If you put IP default gateway on a switch, it'll direct it towards its router or default gateway for its management VLAN. This, I'm going to go over this more when we set up an actual management network in here, because we're going to need this command if we want to remotely manage switches beyond the subnet of the management PC. A few other ones, Snmp Community. This is for, yeah, like, my mind's drawn a blank. PRTG, if you're using that, you need to define community. IP domain names, this will come in with SSH. Logging, so if we're setting up a syslog server, which I'll make another video on that later. And crypto key generation, this is also in SSH, which I'll have a video about. But basically, this is all the commands you need to know. Probably not, but I'm just going to say it is because it's all I could remember right now. I will show you one other useful thing. If we do a show run here, and we want to like say this is a good baseline, we've got it configured great for this switch, and we want to copy it to our other switches, we can actually bring up a notepad. There, I already had one up, and paste this. That's not what I copied. But we can go into Notepad and paste this configuration from our switch directly into Notepad here. And say we just wanted to change the host name or something. We could take the host name out and put in whatever we want, really. Change up these, add, remove the accounts. Pretty much do all our configuration in Notepad, and then when it's time to put it on the actual device, we just go over here. Let's say we're going to go down to switch 1. We just wanted to change the host name. Enable configure terminal, and we can just paste all of this in here. The switch will take it. So that's just a quick way if you want to do your configs in Notepad so that you can do them on multiple devices and save some time so you don't have to hand jam everything in. I use that a lot. Notepad is my best friend. Now I'm going to reload this switch because that also brought over per port configurations, and some of those I didn't want from switch 0. But yeah, I'm going to end the video now. Hopefully this was a pretty basic video. My bad for probably leaving some shit out, but thanks for watching anyways.